Most men don't ruin their lives in one big decision. They just drift. You wake up heading into a new year or a new month, and you realize, I'm busy. I'm scrolling. I'm actually tired. Maybe I'm a little angry at everything. I'm actually not going anywhere. And somehow we think making resolutions will magically change us. In this podcast, we're talking about getting back on track with focused direction. So instead of starting with a resolution list, I want you to start with something much simpler. In fact, much deeper. A theme. It can be one word or it can be a short phrase. So Garrett and AJ, when you think about past New Year's resolutions, goals, maybe you thought, this is my year, what are some emotional words you'd use to describe how they actually turned out?
One that most screams to me is be powerless. Because I actually never really did resolutions and goals because I was like, what am I going to change? We just changed the calendar and we're going to keep on drifting away and just keep on doing the same old thing. It's just a new month, a new year. All I got to do is change one number in the dates that I write, and that's the only thing that's going to change.
All right. For me, when I think about past New Year's resolutions, goals, words that come to mind for how I feel are weak, dejected, hopeless, not good enough, failure, lacking, unable. Not good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's right. In one sense, I'm just flipping the calendar to the next month, right? And it turns out to be January 1st or whatever. So let's do this. Instead of starting off with a list of resolutions, which are basically a list of things I'm going to do that we don't ever get done, okay, right? Most people quit their resolutions by February. We want to start with who is the man you're intended to be. So that's sort of long-term, ultimately into my life kind of thing. So very, very long-term. And if you're thinking that way, it's like, how do I move forward to become more of that man in the new year or the next month? Because you could start this anytime. What it is it's a simple word or a phrase, just a theme for that year. And I like to call it an advanced word because I don't know how the year's going to turn out. So it's a word in advance of the year. And I would add this, if you believe in God, you can literally ask God, what's my word or phrase that you have for me this year? Who are you, God, inviting me to become in the coming year or month even? So let me ask you guys this. If a man did nothing else this year but picked a single word or phrase, a theme for the new year, what could that do for him?
I would say it goes from that powerless feeling that I was talking about to very empowering. Because when you the resolutions, if you just have a to-do list and then, we all know no one really does them. And then you just look back at your resolution, it's kind of almost like a guilt producing document is what you're creating of all the things I didn't do and didn't change.
Yeah.
Well, now it's just one word. And it's maybe this week I haven't lived into the word. Okay. Next week, I just got to live into the word. It's much easier and empowering rather than trying to, come up with this long list of things to do. All you got to do is focus on one word.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, AJ. I think it totally shifts things from this guilt-producing to-do list that is usually just focused on behavior modification kinds of things anyway. And that doesn't really work because without really changing yourself, you can't just flip the calendar and say, okay, yeah, new year, new me. That's not going to happen. You can't build something new, something better on your old life. I've been a personal trainer for since I was 17, so going on 13 years now. I've been in this gym world and I've been in the world of goals and resolutions and seasonal things, right? New Year's resolutions, swimsuit season is coming up, but got to get in shape before everyone sees me for the holidays and stuff, right? So I've really been immersed in those goals. I've never seen those kinds of goals really pan out. If it's a New Year's resolution, I don't see him in the gym after February. But check out this story. This is when I saw it work. I was talking with the guy, wanted to get into the gym, wanted to lose some weight. And, you as a personal trainer, you learn to ask why. What is your motivation? for this? Have you tried to achieve this goal before? He said, yeah, he said he wants to feel better. He wants to lose weight. He knows he needs to. It'll make him healthier. We were talking about why he hasn't been successful at it before. And he said, well, it's because I hate my body. And that shifted everything from, I'm going to try to be consistent with fitness this year, because you're not going to do that. How are you going to do that when you hate your body? And how are you going to take care of your body consistently and build that pattern when you hate your body in the first place? So it changed from this like behavior modification to he had direction now. And his direction was he was going to start learning to love himself and his body. And that was the only guy that I saw in the gym in February, March, April, May, June, and for years to come. So it really, really shifts things because he became more the man who he really is. He moved in the direction of his true identity. And that man was able to achieve the health goals that he wanted to achieve for himself.
Yeah, that's great, Garrett, because that's what I have found with this theme, having a word, because I can't remember 23 things I want to change in my life. I can't keep up with the diet and the gym thing and stuff like that. But I could remember this year I want to love my body.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And now suddenly that's going to drive a whole lot of stuff. It could drive diet. It could drive physical fitness. It could drive a whole lot of things. It could just do a lot of mental health stuff, Yeah. So I find by having one word or a short phrase, okay, I'll give you a few words. It's incredibly focusing. What I'd love for you guys to do, if you're willing, is to share from previous years words that you've gotten and what actually happened.
One word that I got in a previous year, and just to set this up a little bit, I started out setting goals. I was thinking about my business and work and where I wanted to go and things I wanted to accomplish. And I had set a lot of goals, but then I got this word, and the word was lead. And a phrase that went around it was become a leader of men. And at first that felt really, like pretty vague, like, oh, okay, yeah, almost kind of unhelpful. But what it did was it took me out of the pattern of just setting these goals for my business, for my work, for where I wanted things to go, and going and striving and working to just make that happen, to doing it on my own, to just dragging it across the finish line if I had to by myself, and that's kind of my old ways of doing things. Because even with a team, I'm motivated. I have vision for what I want to see happen, and I'll just go out and try to do it. And then come February, March, I'm heading into burnout. I'm exhausted. I'm dejected. I'm feeling overwhelmed and ineffective, incapable, all this kind of stuff. And what that advanced word did was orient me to, oh yeah, there are men who have come alongside me in this work, in this mission, and the impact that we want to have. And they're better than I am at a lot of things. And I have a role to play in this, and I'm going to do that. But if I'm leading, then together as a team, we're going to bring this thing across the finish line and see the fruit of that and see the impact. And I'm not burned out by mid-February. I'm not exhausted by mid-February. I'm not being who I'm meant to be when I'm just trying to drag it across the finish line myself. But the direction of become a leader of men brings me more into who I really am. And that is significantly helpful, having that orienting direction all year.
Having the direction is like I said, I never set a resolution. And then I met George back in 2022, 2021, somewhere in that time frame. And, we started talking, and he brings up this concept of themes of the year. And I'm like, I've never heard anybody talk about that. I might as well give that a try. It seems a lot easier than a list of resolutions, and seems like something that maybe worked. And then George talks a lot about passions and through his process. And I was like, I'm in college, didn't really know where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. So the theme that I chose for that year was explore your passions. And so I was a college student. I was working a job through college to help pay for things. And so then I just said yes to everything. Like I started basketball coaching. I joined the club basketball team. I started a company. And I just kept saying yes and yes and yes to, I joined like a business fraternity group. Like I just kept saying yes and yes to everything to just see like, oh, I'm exploring, which was great. But then by the end of the year, I was like, oh, I'm kind of overwhelmed and overbooked with all of these things. And part of the explore your passions was like, say yes to all these things, but then you're going to find that you're not very passionate about all of them.
Mm.
And so then the theme going into that next year was focus, and was kind of focus your passions. It's like, okay, you did a bunch of exploring, you've committed to all this stuff. Now let's focus on the things that are actual passions. And by the end of the year, I was doing like 3 things. It was I forgot to mention the podcast and that thing of lists of things that I said yes to doing. And so by the end, it was just the podcast, it was my job, and it was just like my health goals and, playing basketball kind of passively, when I can make it to the gym. It was, and so that the themes kind of played off of each other in a way that's like creating a story almost. It's like tying years in together rather than, okay, I didn't like last year, I'm going to try to make this year good. It's
Right.
like, no, last year was, I explored my passions. There was some good in that. There was some bad in that. And now this year, we're going to focus our passions. And then the themes have just continued to weave into each other. And it's been a very fruitful exercise for me.
Mhm.
Yeah. So as you guys can hear, you can figure out a word or a theme that makes sense for where you are for the coming year and then live into that and see how that goes. For me, I do ask God, and I talk to God, and God talks to me. Okay. And more on that in another podcast, probably. But one of the words I got one year was the word joy. And I'm like, this was very odd to me because I was going through one of the worst years of my life, and I was coming the previous year, the year right before the next year, was very, very difficult, very horrible. And I knew things weren't magically going to change on January 1st. This horrible year was going to continue into the next year. And joy was exactly the opposite of what I was feeling, of what is like, how am I going to have joy and that kind of thing. At the end of that year, and I looked back, what I realized was I had learned how to have joy in the midst of the storms in my life.
Wow.
And this is, and by the way, I got the same word the next year. So it was a 2 for 2 years. But I needed that. And it focused me on where's the joy. And because there was no reason to look for joy. It was a joyless season of my life, of years, several years. And so it's incredibly focusing. And in my case, this was amazingly healing as well. So I think for a lot of men, you get to the end of the year, or you're in the middle of the year, kind of like I was in my joyless season, and we really don't know how we feel. We're just tired or we're mad. Well, one of the tools that's really helped us is this feeling sheet. And you can click a link in the description and get one. It will help you find feelings. We discussed it in the December 2025 podcast. It's super good. And in an instant, you're going to figure out, oh my gosh, here's what I'm feeling. Because knowing that, you're going to be able to put a better handle on what you're needing as you come into the next season of your life. So let's transition this to, if a theme or a word for the year is a better way to start, let's talk about why the usual resolutions and self-improvement pushes really fail so badly. I was done a little research on all of this. And so there's a lot of voices or experts out there that will tell you, and they all agree, most resolutions fail. Okay. We still set them, right? But what the experts say is you need goals instead. Oh, and I mean, we're not talking a goal. We're talking 20, 30, 40 goals, lots and lots of goals. All right. And then another problem is people try to build a new life on an old identity. And they grind away with white knuckle discipline. We're just going to grind this out. And eventually they slide back, right? They may not even make it to February in some cases. And then you hear about all the productivity hacks and do these 23 hacks to improve your life in 30 days. And it's going to work. And YouTube makes it so beautiful. And I'm going to be successful and all of that. All right, you got the idea. All right. So guys, what parts of this ring true to you? Like, where have you seen these kinds of encouragement from experts in your own life?
I think the productivity stuff is the biggest one for me, where it's like, if I wasn't doing themes for the year after that chaotic year of saying yes to everything, my natural inclination would be, okay, I just need to do all of these things more efficiently, more productively. We need to get our schedule in track. We need to just, grind it out, white knuckle our way through this and do things as productive as possible. And I'm glad I do themes instead, where it's just like, okay, I'm going to focus instead and cut a couple things out. But the productivity side, that really bounces off the page for me.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of things just talking about the discipline and talking about willpower. And then a couple of years later, they were talking about, no, willpower doesn't work. Willpower is weak. It's why power. You got to know why you're doing it to stay disciplined. And one year I decided I'm gonna leave lying behind. I'm not gonna take it into the new year. Like, that's it, it's done. And I was like, okay, why power? So what's my why power on all this?
Wait. So you're talking about lying, like telling lies?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you made a decision not to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I had good why power,
right
behind it. But what I realized is exactly what you were saying, George. You can't build a new life on the old, on your old self. I think I maybe made it a couple days. Like,
so that's good, because it's this why question. Why is actually an accusatorial word, guys. And you'll hear it, the prosecutors in the court. Why were you there? Why did you do this? Why? Yeah. And so there's a book on why, and I've never read it, so I don't have any. I can't really say anything. I just know the word's the wrong word. Okay, the right word is who. Who are you becoming? And that's what we're pushing right now. That's where we want to go. So y'all have stirred some questions in me. Why do you think so many guys, they talk about goals and productivity, and they're still angry or numb or stuck? And for that matter, really, they're doing all the productivity stuff, or they're doing all of the lists, and they're just they're still unhappy. They're still unfulfilled, not satisfied. What do y'all think?
I think a lot of that frustration comes from just what we're talking about, trying to do that out of discipline, and it becomes behavior modification, and it becomes trying to do something new with that willpower, with that why power, and forgetting about who, and not having the direction of who are you becoming, because the true man that you are can do these things that you want to do and can leave behind the things that you want to leave behind. Like, I had to learn that I had to become a truer version of myself. I had to trek into who I am to be able to start to leave lying behind. That wasn't a behavior modification kind of thing that I was going to be able to do.
Did you do any research, like, okay, ways to stop lying or something?
Yeah, and that actually led me to boundaries, which, oh man, I bought into like, okay, yeah, I just need to build up all these boundaries around my life, right? And that's going to keep me in this place that I want to be in, to be a better man.
So the concept on boundaries is basically, it's just like rules, okay? It's just another word.
Yeah, exactly. It's things that you just construct around you, just more behavior modification stuff, try to help you act more in the way that you want to act. But really, I think what it comes down to, becoming the man that you are, that man, you don't need these boundaries around you, because you can just be who you are. And there's so much freedom in being able to just be who you are. and not having to live with this constant like boundary stuff.
Right.
Because all that does is help the false you, or just a less true version of yourself to try to act more like the true you. Why not just become the true man and be free to be that man?
Well, that's a really tough thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so AJ, what do you think on this? So like people are still unfulfilled and they're trying to do all these, and you said that was the one thing that you could relate to with the productivity hacks.
Yeah. And I think the anger comes from the disappointment of how many times you're going to play the same game that you lose at. It's like you keep making these goals or you make these productivity hacks and they don't make you more productive. And so you get angry that you wasted time trying to do these productivity hacks when you could have just been, going your same way. And I think that kind of calls back to our last podcast we just did on anger, where a lot of times, at least for me, it's like a masking emotion where it's trying to hide the fact that I'm feeling other deeper emotions. Like I'm looking at the feeling sheet here, and inadequacy was one we talked about a lot in our last podcast.
Right.
And the powerless that I mentioned at the beginning of this one, that's in the inadequacy column. And so that anger comes from, these resolutions are, I'm going to do these resolutions and take my life back and be powerful and move in power. And then they don't work. And then you go, oh man, I'm just powerless. And then instead of getting all sad and dejected, anger strikes up and he's like, resolutions are stupid or however that, manifests. But the anger comes from the fact that you're feeling inadequate or disappointed or powerless.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into what actually happens when men don't address this deeper layer of focusing on who they're born to be. Because we keep talking about that. We're kind of circling around that. So let's just go straight into that. What does it look like when a man just quietly drifts? And we're kind of assuming here that the productivity hacks haven't worked or they were not sustainable. Usually that's the reason they don't work, is they're not sustainable. And one of my favorite quotes, I use this a lot, is from Henry David Thoreau. He said this in 1849. The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation. What is called resignation is confirmed desperation. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, I think this is more true for men in this century than it was 2 centuries ago. Frankly, that was almost 200 years ago when he said that, right? So we used to see this quiet desperation begin to creep in men's lives in their 40s, the 50s, definitely by their 60s. You just see lots of, we call it retirement. It's really resignation. They are not the man they were put on this earth to be. I assure you. So guys, when you look around at men your age, okay, so we're talking Gen Z, maybe some millennials, what does quiet desperation actually look like today in real life?
Yeah, I think for a lot of young men, especially my age, and I see it in a number of people that I know, it's this kind of mentality of I'm going to do, because now we're in our 20s, we have to work to live and do things. We don't get to coast on mom and dad anymore. We're out of high school and all of that. And I think it's this mindset of I'm going to do the least work possible to get the most money I can, even though I might not make a 6-figure salary. I'll just take a salary that I can live off of. I'm just going to do the least work to get a living salary. And then the rest of that time, I'm going to just kind of like veg out is kind of the way people put it. It's like, we're just going to play Xbox. We're going to sit on our couch. We're going to order Uber Eats. We're not going to cook anything. We're just going to sit around and just be couch potatoes and then go to work Monday through Friday. And then each day just look forward to our couch. And it's kind of just this living to resign to the couch and that's kind of just this living this easy, comfortable, cruise controlled life is kind of what that resignation looks like.
Yeah, I think resign to the couch is a really good phrase there. I think the resignation is just a huge piece of that, because when you try these productivity things, you try to live into your passions. You make effort to be doing the work and have the job and get the promotions or whatever it is, and it doesn't pan out, then you start to settle. And it's with everything, right? Maybe you start to settle in your relationships and in your marriage. You start to settle with your health.
Settle. What does that mean? What does it look actually what does it look like, Garrett, to just settle in your marriage? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think it's like you let go of the vision for the good marriage that you have, and you start to try to find some comfort in the crappy situation.
What do you tell yourself? What do you tell yourself when you've settled?
It's not going to get any better. There's no point in trying. This is as good as it's going to get, so I might as well make the best of it.
Yeah. It's like a damage reduction mindset. Oh, we're not seeing eye to eye. We don't like each other, but we got the kids, and she's nice enough. We're good in public together, so I guess I'll make my man cave in the basement. She can have the living room, and we'll eat dinner together and we'll share a bed. But
so it eventually drifts so far that it becomes sort of a truce.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're both miserable. Let's not make each other more miserable.
Right. Oh, can you guys relate to this? I mean, let's get into this a little bit deeper, because what does this look like in the day-to-day drift? Because if you can spot this now in your life, the freedom you could find is unbelievable. Okay. So like this wake up, grind away at your job, scroll for relief, at lunch, sleep, repeat. I don't know. And then there's this sort of, I'm pissed off at everything, kind of this low grade anger at everything, or a numbness, like what you're just describing is never going to get any better. Or I thought I'd be further along by now, and I guess this is as good as it gets.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had a season like that in y'all's life? I'm going to put you on the spot. It's like, I have many times where you were just existing and not really living. And what were some signs of that in like the everyday life?
Yeah, for me, it was very much kind of like what I was describing just a second ago, where it's like, my first job out of college was at this big tech company, and my job was kind of like pointless. Like, they didn't really need me to be around. And so I was just like, oh, I guess this is life. I got the good grades, I got the good job, and now I do this work that's kind of meaningless. I just sit on these meetings, and then I just, it's good, right? I got a good salary. I live in a nice apartment in a nice city. I'm taking care of myself. Like, this, I guess, is as good as it gets. So I'm just gonna, wait until I can play Xbox tonight. Or it's just like this drift into, well, I don't see what else I could be doing better. So I guess, and then you have these ideas of what you could do, but then they kind of just produce like guilt, where it's like, oh yeah, community sounds fun, but community doesn't exist. I'll just go on Instagram.
Right.
My algorithm is my community. And that's kind of what it was looking like for me.
How about you, Garrett?
So I had a season where my marriage was really tough. It was just this season of resignation, this season of settling, because I felt like all of the efforts that I would try to do would just blow up in my face. And again, it just comes back to anything that you try, that you're putting effort into, that you're making yourself vulnerable in, that you're giving your best shot, and it just blows up in your face and it doesn't work. I mean, how long do you keep doing that before you start to resign, before you start to settle, like we've been talking about? So I started to settle in the marriage and started to let go of this vision of just great union and partnership that I had going into the marriage.
Yeah, this is something I've definitely experienced many times in my life, where it's like I had great ideas, I had high hopes, and you can't control other people in your life, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a boss or a coworker or just a friend. And I've had it in every department. Okay, so I basically found myself, like, I think that's a good word, Garrett, settling into just, okay, this is the way it's going to be. But I'm not a person who settles. I'm not a status quo guy. And I go, but I can only change one thing. That's me. And I discovered I can't even change me very well. And it took God in my life to be able to start to make those changes. And what I realized was, you know what? I can still be the best husband I can be. I can live into the vision God's given me for that, or fatherhood, or employee, or boss, or good friend. And that began to shift my dynamic, because I go, and that's when it began to dawn on me, I'm here for some sort of reason. I just don't know what it is. Okay, so since drift and resignation are real and resolutions haven't worked, let's get into what it actually looks like to turn and walk in a different direction without trying to fix our whole life overnight. Because this is what we mean by get back on track to a focused direction. In other words, to stop drifting, you have to choose a direction and start trekking. Notice that, trek for the common man, trekking towards the man you were put on this earth to be, not become a perfect man. And so most of us default to what we've already talked about. I'll be more disciplined. I'll be more productive. But discipline or productivity without direction just makes you more tired and more cynical. So Garrett and AJ, when each of you have tried to fix yourself with discipline, how did it turn out? What did you feel?
Just burnt out. It's just like, I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to fill my schedule up, and I'll just be disciplined to do it all. And that will eliminate the ability for me to distract myself, or for me to veg out, or for me to drift. As if I just keep doing things, then I can't drift. But in reality, you just burn out, and then you just find ways and and then you want to just drift even harder, because you've just grinded so hard. You're like, I need to drift away from all of this.
Yeah, when I tried to craft all these ways, these things into my life that kind of restrained me and forced me to act like who I wanted to be, rather than trekking in the direction of becoming who I really am, which honestly is a lot more daunting, is harder. You know, it feels just easier, more comfortable to just be like, I'm just going to set some disciplines. I'm just going to set some boundaries, right? And I'm going to live into that. That feels a little easier, a little safer, a little more surface.
Yeah.
Than, okay, no, that's not going to work. I need to move in the direction of becoming the man I'm meant to be. Well, that's going to take you on an adventure that is going to require something of you. It requires more of you than just trying to live into the goals. But the goals don't work. They just lead to burnout, to making you more cynical, everything that we're talking about.
Yeah. So let me offer a simple 3-step framework. Okay. So name the drift honestly. In other words, ask yourself, where have I quietly settled? Where have I given up on myself? So we're not looking for the real obvious things. We're looking for the more subtle things, because it starts in the subtle things, as you're hearing in our conversation. The feeling sheet is a great tool that can help here. If all you know is I'm tired, or all you know is I'm mad, this feeling sheet will give you language to name more honestly what's going on, and the link's in the description. So that's going to be a huge help to start to get your arms around what is the drift. Okay. Then choose a theme for the new year, the next month. I don't care. You can start this anytime. So pick a word or a phrase, short phrase, just a few words. Got to be easy to remember what the next step is towards the kind of man you want to grow into in this next season of your life, this next year. Okay. And if you believe in God, ask him, what's my word? What would you say, God, is my phrase for this year? And then as a third step, just take very small but aligned steps. So keep the word in your head, keep the theme right there where you can see it and remember it, and stay focused on that throughout the year. So AJ and Garrett, based on y'all's experience in this conversation, what would you like to say to the men watching?
Yeah, I think just like pretty simple. You don't have to fix your whole life in a day, and you're not going to. So it's not worth trying.
Yeah.
But you also don't have to keep living this fake life that you're settling for, that you don't like, this man that you don't recognize, that you don't want to be. You don't have to keep doing that either. Like we've talked about this podcast, just weaving themes, take a theme and just take an hour, be honest with where you've drifted, kind of just pick that word or phrase for 2026. If you believe in God, ask him for it. And then start living into the man you want to be, the man you were born to be, the man you feel destined to be. You can start living into your destiny just by picking a word, a theme, and starting to take control of your story rather than just drifting away and, getting angry at goals you didn't reach.
Good.
Yeah, that's awesome, AJ. And I would just add, to get really clear on what you're feeling, what's going on inside, guys, just grab that free feeling sheet that we've linked below. That's a really clear, super simple and easy way to put words to what you're feeling and really understand what's going on inside. And that's going to help you significantly to start to understand what direction to move into to become more the man that you really are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. And I want you guys to remember this. You are not born for quiet desperation and resignation.
Yeah.
You were born to become the man God intends you to be. And that's whether you believe in God or not, okay? You have a purpose.
Yeah.
You have a reason for being here. And that's what the Trek for the Common Man is all about. So start trekking to that man today with a theme for the coming year, the coming month. Thanks for watching.